West Ham versus Southampton, arguably the biggest game of the season. I would actually go as far as saying for both football clubs, it really is that big. I know I always use the phrase quite regularly, and Riley will remind me that I always do tend to lean towards it's a must-win. But I think it's fair to say, Riley, this really, really is a crucial must-win for David Moyes.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much bigger than this. It's pretty much a 6-pointer, isn't it? You feel like it's a game-defining season for either side. Like I've said before, I think the only way we're going to get out of this is just by winning against the teams around us, and that starts with Southampton. They're a side that I personally think could start going on a really big downward spiral, and I hope that in beating them we can actually start that, because as we've said before, no team is down and out at the moment. Everyone's still fighting down the end of the table, and we need to start getting some daylight between some sides. But I mean, on their day, they can play some good football, can't they, Southampton? They've got some dangerous players. You just know there's going to be a James Ward-Prowse free kick at some point in the game that's going to, put your heart on your arse. And they've got some exciting talents, but realistically, when you look at the two squads, it's a golfing class, isn't it?
I think that's it. I mean, if we talk about, so start with Southampton, then I mean, you're right, mate. I think you look at them. Personally, I've always kind of admired Southampton, especially the last few years. They've got a very, very good recruitment policy, a very good academy. And I think they kind of remind me on their day a little bit like Brighton. They've kind of got that similar sort of stature of club and ultimately quite well run. I think they've established themselves as a solid Premier League side. They're never going to really be challenging, top European honours and challenging Champions League, you'd feel, especially without any significant investment. But ultimately, they've been run very, very well. I mean, you look at the players they produced over the years, Gareth Bowles and whatnot, Walcott's and things like that. And really, really top players that have come out of the academy there. But I don't know, you look at them now and you just feel like, because of the managerial changes they've made and the chopping and changing, it just looks a bit disjointed. They don't really look like a side that has a great deal of quality in it. And I think that's arguably why they are where they are. It's almost like you just said, mate, they've been on a bit of a slippery slope for quite some time now. You kind of just, I don't know, I actually get the feeling with Southampton, and obviously Southampton fans, if they watch this, will totally disagree, and they're very right to say, but I actually think relegation is probably a good thing, might be for them. It's almost like they need like a little bit of a reset and just have a bit of a clear out and start again and build again. That's how I kind of look at them at the moment. The managerial changes have not helped at all. We're just talking about this off air at Nathan Jones, just a bit of a car crash of an appointment. Although I would say that the recent appointment has breathed a bit of life into them. They are fighting, you're right, but you do look at that. They kind of remind me of a side. If you look at West Ham, for instance, we're a side that's got a lot of quality that's just not really clicking. It's just not really working at the moment, and we're sort of having to rely on getting the odd goal here and there to get us through it. Whereas Southampton are sort of like, they haven't got much quality. They just rely on the bits they do have. Like, and you just said about Ward-Prowse, it's like they heavily rely on him to get him out of problems, and he's certainly one to watch. In terms of them, Riley, have you got any kind of players in mind, Southampton, that you obviously alluded to Ward-Prowse? Anyone else that you think West Ham have to be quite wary of?
I think Carl Walker-Peters will be an interesting battle. Probably our star player this season in Said Benrahma going up against him. And I think he played quite well with the reverse fixture. You've also got Romeo, I can't pronounce his last name, but I think it's Lavia.
Something like that. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
It was a big signing. I think Chelsea were rumoured to try and re-sign him or something like that for like 45 million in the summer after they sold him, in January after they sold him back to Southampton, which is just mental. But I think he's quite a good player, and he will definitely give us a bit of a test in midfield, especially against the likes of someone like James Ward-Prowse.
Yeah,
Edozie as well, youngster from City. I think we do struggle with direct players, and if gets given the chance, I think he could be quite dangerous against us. But realistically, it is just kind of James Ward-Prowse. He seems like their game-winning player. We're so stupid for giving away like stupid set pieces and stupid free kicks. Like you would kind of say at this point. I mean, you remember what happened when Pyatt was at the club for us, and every time you got a free kick, it felt like a bloody penalty. I mean, they must feel that way at Southampton now. It must be such a good get out of jail free card for them. But I mean, in terms of like attacking talents, they don't really scare me all that much. In terms of their midfield, I don't think it's a midfield that looks set to dominate. In terms of their defence, I feel like there's a lot of players in there that are weak and that we could definitely get at. for me, besides like Bournemouth in terms of actual quality of the squad, they've probably got the second worst quality squad in the league, in my opinion. So for me, I just it's difficult to see on paper how we're going to lose this one, but surely if anyone can find a way to do it, it's going to be us, mate.
Well, exactly. I mean, yeah. I mean, you look at this. I mean, basically, this is bottom of the table versus 18th. We do have 2 games in hand over Southampton. We need to remember that, and we've also got. I think we've got plus 13 goal swing on them as well. So that effectively is like another point. So it's one of them games. This really is pivotal in our season, because if we can beat Southampton, that will then create, like I've just said, another point with the goal difference, effectively like a 5-point cushion over them. And then we play our game in hand over Newcastle at home. And if we were then to win that game, effectively, you'd imagine Southampton would find it pretty much impossible to catch West Ham at that stage. You'd find it very difficult. It would create a nice gap for us. So it's vital West Ham win this game. Yeah, you're right on Southampton. I think they rely massively on Ward-Prowse. I think that does worry me with West Ham. We do have a tendency to give away silly free kicks, like you've said. And I think that's something we've got to be so mindful of, because, the last thing we need is to be gifting them opportunities, and especially Ward-Prowse, because he just seems to score from every angle. Like you say, it's almost like having a penalty with him. And it does remind me of when we did have Payet. He's that good. So I think that's the biggest concern. I think Shea Adams looks like he's out. I think he's their top goal scorer as well this season. So that's a big bonus for us. And I think they've got some issues at the back as well. A couple of centre-backs that are probably a bit slightly doubtful, possibly. So this is a good sign to be playing Southampton. We've got a good record against them. In terms of going in, if we talk about Southampton, then you look at West Ham. I mean, David Moyes has alluded to the fact there could be a couple of issues in terms of injuries and niggles. I think he was suggesting that Naya Forgerd picked up he's got a slight issue, and so has Skamaka. And I think he mentioned a bit of illness in the side as well. So, although I don't really tend to take too much what David Moyes says in these conferences, because he does tend to lean towards painting a picture that isn't quite accurate. I think he does it on purpose to throw the opposition slightly. So I'd be more interested to see what X has got to say on it, which he'll be providing an update on. But going into it, let's just assume, Riley, that we do have a fully fit squad for this. How are you lining up for this one?
Oh, it's a difficult one. I haven't really thought too much about it. The big question for me is maybe, do you go Skamaka up top, or do you go really direct to someone like Danny Ings, try and play him behind, sort of catch Southampton out? Because the way they play at the moment, they try and catch teams on the break. I feel like maybe, we would be able to reciprocate that. Obviously, Areola will start in goal. I believe Fabianski is still out with his eye injury.
Well, I'm not sure, actually. I think he might be available. I think he slightly might be available. So that's an interesting one. That's one I was going to allude to, but I should have mentioned it first, because that's the next big question, isn't it? And knowing David Moyes, I'm pretty certain I know what he's going to do. But yeah, I believe Fabianski will be available for this game. So what if you're in David Moyes' shoes, what are you doing? Are you sticking with Areola, or are you bringing Fab back in?
Well, I feel like if Fabianski's eye got tore out of his socket and then he said I'm fit to play, Moyes would probably just chuck it back in the side, just because he just loves his favourites, doesn't he? He doesn't seem to care. I mean, Areola's not done bad since he's come into the side, though. I mean, fair enough, he's conceded a fair few goals, but I feel like that's more on the team than the actual goalkeeper. But to be honest, there's not a huge amount in it for me. I think both goalkeepers are brilliant on their day. The only thing for me is that, the torch has got to get passed over to Areola at some point. So why not now? Why not just keep him in the side for a string of games? There seems at no point just sort of allowing Fabianski to reclaim his number one spot when he probably will leave at the end of the season. And even if he doesn't, he should be, because the whole point we brought Areola in was to be a replacement for Fabianski and reclaim the number one spot. So it just doesn't make much sense to me. I feel like we should just be starting him personally. But I think Moyes probably will start Fab if he is fit.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what he will do. If it was up to me, I think I would go with Areola. I think Soufal's back in as well, so I'd quite like to see Soufal now, starting. I think that'd be a nice lift for us. I think we've got Zuma and Agurd, I believe, should be available. I know he's already alluded to the fact that Agurd might have picked up a little niggle, but I can't imagine unless it's something serious, he'll be out. But at the end of the day, we don't have the luxury of that now. We've got to get results. So I'm sure, even if he's 90% fit, I think he'll play. Emerson was the player he alluded to actually had been unwell. So he's obviously a little bit touch and go. But again, if he's available, he would be starting for me. Paqueta, Rice in the middle. I'd quite like to see Lanzini start, to be honest, over Souček this game. I thought he played really well in the Conference League. He's been talking quite a fair good game recently, the last couple of weeks as well, in the press and on the site recently. He was talking. We reported on it yesterday, and I don't know. He seems like he's really hungry and wants to do well. And I don't know. I'd be leaning towards him, but I don't think Moyes will do that. I think he'll probably stick with Souček playing this kind of ghost striker role where he's jumping between, sort of help assisting the midfield and ghost in the box when he can. So, and like you say, then you've got Benrahma. You'd imagine Bowen on one side, and then the question is who's the striker. It's a tricky one. This, I mean. I'm guessing Danny Ings will start. That's who I think will start. And I'm kind of leaning towards it a little bit. But there's also a part of me that thinks Antonio might be a good option for this game. I just feel like this might be the kind of type of game would suit him quite well. Like you've said, that with Southampton, you imagine they're going to try and play a counter-attack side. When you look at them, I think they're a side that you could use someone like Antonio to bully them a little bit, get right in their faces. And that's what I'd be fancying. But I think he'll go with Danny Ings. I mean, mate, this is a huge game. He's got to get it right, David Moyes. There's obviously a lot of talk going into this match, which we're going to get now pretty much throughout the season. X has already said that the club are kind of treating it on a game-by-game basis with Moyes. Let's be honest, they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what to do with the manager situation. They're just kind of fingers crossed every week and hoping it works out for the best. But you get the feeling that if West Ham were to lose to Southampton, I think that the calls for him will become too intense. I think that the club probably might have to act, just because on the face of it, if West Ham lose to Southampton, you would imagine then suddenly would be thrusted as one of the favourites to get relegated all of a sudden. Because I think for some reason the media and the pundits, they're not really taking it as seriously, are they, as relegation candidates? They keep going, oh yeah, West Ham will be fine. They've got David Moyes, they've got the quality, they'll be fine, they'll get out of it. No one's really going, West Ham really could get relegated here. And I think this could be the game where if we were to lose it, the opinions of all the panels would shift quite quickly. And I think even the pundits at Match of the Day would be sort of going, do you know what? These could go down now. If they're losing at home to the team at the bottom of the league, this is really bad. So it is absolutely crucial David Moyes gets this right. Then obviously, mate, on to the predictions. I'm going to go with you first. What do you reckon for this one?
Of course you're going to go with me first. I don't know. It just feels like one of those games that we have to win, so we kind of just won't. It sort of feels when push comes to shove this season, we just don't get the results that we need to get, and it is very frustrating because we don't seem to beat the teams around us.
I'm not sure. I mean, we did Everton and we did Forest, didn't we? That reminds me of them games. We kind of went into those two games at home. Yeah, but go on. I'll let you finish. Sorry, mate.
But I feel like we don't beat them as often as we should. It's more like. Yeah, if it's like a really big game, we can get over the line. But early in the season, we drew 1-1 to Southampton. I just feel like when push comes to shove, we're just not going to get the job done. But I'm going to go with a 2-1 West Ham victory because I have to believe that we're going to get 3 points here. Because if we don't, then we are severely in the mud, my friend.
Oh, mate, it doesn't even bear thinking about losing this game because not only, as I've said, I think. The fans would be going to absolute meltdown, uproar if we were to lose to Southampton. I think the media would then turn quite big time on Moyes. I think the pressure would become too much. I think the club would have to act. And I dare I say, if they didn't act after the Southampton game, then Newcastle would arguably be that's his must-win game. You must win or you're sacked. I think that's what probably would happen. But however, with that being said, I think that with West Ham, I'm going to kind of go against your theory. Then I actually think we're okay against the teams around us. I think we fare quite well, especially at home. I think we will get the job done. I actually think we're going to win quite well. I've got a feeling we're going to win 3-0. Only on the basis that I think that we've had enough preparation going into the game, the magnitude of it, it's at home. And if you look at our record against Southampton, it's pretty good, especially at home. We do tend to beat them and beat them quite comfortably. It actually reminds me of the time, if I remember rightly, when Bowen scored his first goal for the club. I think we were in a very similar situation then. We were fighting to get away from the wrong end of the table, and I think we beat them quite well. I don't know. They just seem to. They're one of them teams like Brighton, like we are for Brighton. When they come to our place, they just seem to just roll over quite. Typically, they have done in the past. So that's my theory behind it. I think West Ham will win this, but that's just my gut. But bloody hell, mate, if we don't, I dread to think what it's going to be like because I think it could be curtains for Moyes.
Do you think that's the right call if we lose Southampton game? Because I personally don't think at this stage of the season there's any point in sacking Moyes. Even if he went on to lose the next 5 or 6 games, I don't see the point in sacking him. I don't see anyone available who's going to come in. And I mean, look at Palace. They've brought in Hodgson, for Christ's sake. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
it just looks dangerous bringing in a manager this late into the season.
I know what you're saying. I think it depends on the circumstances. If West Ham were to play very well and lose because Southampton played very well and then we just lost and it was unfortunate, but we played very, very well, that might be slightly different. If West Ham were to draw, play well, yeah, okay, fine. You have to accept that. I think if West Ham were to get battered, if we lost, say, 2 or 3-0 and we were really poor, I think his job he'd have to go just on the basis that he's obviously lost the players now and we have to deal with it very quickly. Even if it meant just putting Noble in charge for a few weeks while we're just trying to get someone over the line or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Even if they just think, we just got to get someone temporary in charge. I don't know. But I don't think that will happen. I don't believe that's going to happen with West Ham. I think if you look at us in the past when we've had these games, we have had them twice already this season, as I've said, Nottingham Forest and Everton. Both those games, knowing we had to win, it was a big moment for the season. And let's be honest, we got the job done both times pretty comfortably, and we looked confident. We went into it with our towels up, and I've got a feeling that might be the same this time around. I think West Ham will be. These players are very aware how big this game is because not only is it the Southampton game that would because of how tight it is, it would make the league look very different very quickly. But then we play Newcastle Wednesday. So the idea is if we can beat Southampton, get the confidence up, and let's say we can go and beat Newcastle, I hate to say, I know this is going to sound arrogant, but if we win those 2 games, we're pretty much safe. Because then you've only got to win probably 2 out your last 10 games then to secure safety-ish. So you're kind of thinking that's how big these games are. So we've got to get the ball rolling at Southampton. If it goes the other way though, mate, yeah, I do think the pressure will be too much and the club will act, but let's wait and see.